Welcome to Sacred Caregiving, where everyday tasks become a sacred act. My name is Barbara, and today we're going to be talking about what it's really like to go shopping with someone who's mobility challenged, and how caregivers can make that experience smoother, more respectful, and more empowering. Have you ever tried going shopping with someone who uses a cane, a walker, a wheelchair, or other mobility assistive device? It might seem simple. Just grab a cart and go. But with anything in caregiving, when it seems simple, it's usually not. You're navigating with narrow aisles, heavy doors, the awkward stairs. It can be frustrating because you just want to get in, get out, and be done. Move on to whatever's next. But when you're shopping with someone who moves differently through the world, the pace changes. You slow down. You wait. You navigate obstacles you didn't even notice before. And that shift can be exhausting, not just for you as the caregiver, but also for the person that you're caring for. As human beings, it's hard for us to slow down. We're wired to keep moving, stay productive, check things off a list. But caregiving asks us to pause, to be present, to let go of the rush and lean in to the rhythm of someone else's needs. For the person you're helping, it can also be embarrassing. First of all, they're used to being independent, and they're afraid of being seen differently. Second, they move slower through the world, and they can feel like they're just in everyone's way. And third, like most of us, it's hard to ask for help. It brings to mind when I used to go shopping with a friend of mine who's in his 90s. And he used to walk on a cane and kind of shuffle his feet. And yet, rather than getting a mobility cart, he'd insist on using a regular cart and pushing it himself. And every time we cross paths in the main aisle with someone, we'd all stand there awkwardly for a few seconds trying to decide who should go first. It was like when you're driving and all four cars arrive at the same time at a four-way stop. My friend would smile and say, "Go on, I'm slower than molasses." And when I'd ask him about using a mobility cart, I'd be like, mobility cart would make it easier. And be like, "That's for old people. I don't want people thinking I'm old." He said it with humor, but you could tell that there was an underlying truth to it. So, what inspired this episode was when I picked my dad and my stepmom up from the airport. And they were both in wheelchairs. Now, I was expecting my stepmom to be in a wheelchair because she's had fibromyalgia for years. She's had neuropathy. It turns out now that her neuropathy was caused by Charcot-Marie-Tooth Disease. So I expected her to be in a wheelchair. What was a surprise was my dad. He's always been active. He still goes skiing once a year. He plays darts with his friends. He stays socially engaged. So seeing him in a wheelchair, even at the age of 78, was a surprise. And he explained to me later that he has bone spurs in his neck that cause him pain periodically and also cause mobility issues at times, especially when he's traveling long distances. So, the day after, they spent the night at their hotel and relaxed and whatnot, and then we made plans to meet the next day. Well, that morning, my dad texted me and said they were heading out to the store to get water. At first, I didn't think anything of it. But then I remembered they were from out of town. The store's layout was unfamiliar to them. Both of them now had mobility issues. So I didn't want them wandering all over trying to figure out what they needed and what aisle it was on if they didn't have to. So I texted my dad the location of the mobility scooters near the front entrance of the store, and I also texted him where the water was, which aisle, and reassured him that you could in fact get an entire case of water into the basket of a mobility scooter provided by the store because I had seen people do it. And it might seem like a small thing, but it saved them time, energy, and probably some pain and aggravation. And that's what caregiving comes down to. Knowing how to ease the moment before it becomes a struggle. Sometimes using a mobility aid isn't about convenience. It's about how someone sees themselves. And it's something that we don't talk enough about. How tools that can help sometimes can feel like symbols of decline. I feel that myself. I'm 53 years old. I've had a back injury, and because of my back injury, it affects my balance. And so I walk with a cane, and sometimes I wear a back brace. It's not easy. Even as someone who has spent literal years advocating for accessibility, I still catch myself hesitating. I debate with myself and go, do I really need to wear my back brace today? Or if I take this cane, am I going to remember to keep track of it? Not because I don't need support. Because, like I said, without the cane, I'm staggering around. I look like I'm drunk, but I'm not. I'll have a potential to literally lean over, my left leg will literally lift off the ground for no apparent reason, and I'll start leaning. I'll literally start falling over to the side without my cane. So it's not because I don't need the support. It's that I know how quickly people's perceptions can shift. I was out with my best friend recently, and I have two canes. One was mine from a previous knee injury, and one was my mom's that she got in Ireland. Now, the cane that I usually use is just mine, which has part of a pool noodle on it as the handle cushion, and I'll talk more about that in another video. But it's like lime green handle, pink cane, when I'm wearing my back brace, I look a lot older than 53. And then I'm hanging out with my best friend who's in her 30s who looks like she's in her teens. So it looks like I could be her mother. Even though, for the record, no, I can't. But people's perceptions can shift. So, if you're heading out with someone who uses a cane, walker, wheelchair, another mobility assistive device, here are a few things that you can do to make this trip smoother for both of you. Number one, if possible, call the store ahead of time to check and see if scooters and wheelchairs are available. Check to make sure that they have scooters or wheelchairs available, or what they might have for someone who is mobility challenged to navigate the store more easily. That does not mean that the store is going to reserve them. In fact, most stores do not reserve them. But knowing what's on hand ahead of time can save time and possibly some stress. If they're limited, like I know at my local stores, they only have like a certain number. At one of our local stores, they only have like 3 of the mobility scooter carts at any given time. So if they're limited like that, consider going during off-peak hours. That might mean a shift in your schedule. And no, it's not always easy to change your schedule, but it circles back to what we talked about before, the need to slow down. Sometimes the most respectful thing we can do is adjust our pace to meet someone else's reality. Tip number 2, choose stores with wide aisles, automatic doors, and accessible parking. It makes a huge difference. Now, be advised, just because you are traveling with someone who is mobility challenged does not mean that you are entitled to park in a handicapped accessible space. If you do not have a valid placard displayed in the front window, either on the dash or hanging from the rear view mirror, or you're driving a vehicle with a handicap plates, be respectful of the guidelines, be respectful of the laws. If you don't have the proper handicapped identification for your vehicle, you can drop the person who is mobility challenged off at the front door. In most cases, tell them that you're going to park the car. You'll be right back. In some cases, stores have benches, inside their little lobby area by the front door where a person can wait. So when you're calling ahead to check on the mobility scooters or what things they have available for someone who is mobility challenged, you can also ask them, do you have benches in the store? And where are they? Which then leads me to tip number 3, is share the layout in advance with the person. Point out aisle numbers, or at the very least say, okay, produce is over here, pet supplies are here. If you get to the media section where the DVDs and books are, you've gone too far, you need to come back to the grocery section. Show them, point out where the restrooms are. Again, point out where benches are if they need to take a rest, or if, they get disoriented, just tell them, okay, just go sit on the bench. I'll find you, but stay in one place. If you're using an in-store app on your phone to help you navigate the store, be aware that the aisle listed isn't always accurate. I ran into this a few weeks ago. I was looking for pet deodorizer, and I figured to save time I would look up on my app which aisle it was on. App told me it was on aisle Z25. Only one problem. There is no aisle Z. There is no Z section in my store. So I had to ask a sales associate, by the way, where's the pet deodorizer? And they said, oh, it's over in the pet section. So use common sense. Don't be afraid to ask a sales associate for help. A quick question can save a long walk. I wish I had taken my own advice. Tip number 4, slow down. For you, it's an errand. For them, it might be the only outing they have that week. Let them set the pace. Rushing can feel dismissive, even if you're trying to help. It's not about getting through the store. It's about making the experience feel safe, respectful, and maybe even enjoyable. Tip number 5, celebrate small wins. A smooth trip isn't about getting the groceries. It's about preserving dignity. If they've navigated the store without pain, if they asked for help when they needed it, or if they simply felt seen and respected by you, then that's a win. If you, as the caregiver, paused and were present with the person, if you let go of the rush and leaned into someone else's needs, that's a win too. Caregiving isn't about only the tasks. It's about the moments that remind you of why you're showing up for this person. It's a reminder to them that they still matter. Even the most confident person can feel vulnerable when they're having to navigate a space that doesn't accommodate their needs. As caregivers, we see this up close and personal every day. We learn that dignity isn't just about what we do. It's about how we do it. For caregivers, it's a chance to show respect, patience, and love in the smallest ways. If you resonated with this, go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's walking this path of being a caregiver too. I've also created a companion guide with 5 practical tips for shopping with mobility challenged loved ones. It's available exclusively on my Patreon. You can find the link below. And if you'd like to follow along for more reflections, stories, and resources, I'm also on Facebook, and that link is also below. Thanks for being a caregiver. It really is sacred work.